Hello and welcome everyone to the Cross Cultural Couples Podcast. My name is Erica El Halali.
I am Hamada El Hilali.
And today we're going to be talking about human design. So, this is something I have developed a passion for over the last, year, probably. Something I got into more during the pandemic. So this is something recently we've been using in our relationship, but I think this might be really helpful for people. So I thought we would share it in one of our episodes.
Yes.
And Hamada even has started learning about it too.
I'm not as good as you, but
Yeah.
I'm learning.
Yeah. And that's like with anything. It's fun just to learn new things, and in a relationship you can share different things, and if things are helpful to you, use it. Why not? So we're going to explain a little bit about what human design is. We actually did a Instagram poll, and we asked if people had heard of human design, and only 63% who responded had.
Really?
So it's definitely, there's a good chunk, almost 40% that haven't heard of it, at least who responded. It's definitely something that I've seen a lot more recently, and maybe it's just because I've been clicking on human design things, so now I'm seeing it everywhere. But it is kind of growing in popularity. So we'll get into a little bit about what human design is, and then we'll get into the different types of human design. There's a lot more to it than that, but we thought for the first episode we have on human design, that would be our focus. So human design is a pseudoscience, whatever you want to call it, and it basically combines astrology, I Ching, Kabbalah, and the chakra systems. And it was created by a guy, Alan Robert Krakauer. He published a book called The Human Design System in 1992. He did it under a pseudonym like Ra Uruhu, and he claimed that he developed this system following a mystical experience he had in 1987. So this is a very new system that's been around. It's definitely like a self-help method, and it doesn't have any basis in religion, even though it uses different systems from different parts of the world. It's not really based in astrology. It's more kind of like a new type of or it's not based in religion. It's mainly just like a new type of astrology. So in human design, the way it's shown to you, you get this like body graph, and it'll show you like a body, and there'll be like different lines and triangles and squares and diamonds and everything. And then there's different, a numbering system on there. So, for example, there's 64 hexagrams of the I Ching that are on there in various locations. And then there's it's overlain, and so you'll see like where it is with the chakras and everything. There's a lot that goes into it, so I don't want to get too much in the weeds on it. I just want to give you an idea of where it's coming from, how they're figuring things out. So it does get calculated based on your birth date and where you were born. So very much like astrology, there's different, if you Google human design chart and you look for a free one, it'll come up. And when you get the chart, it'll show you'll see the graph and everything. But then you'll be given a type. So you'll have to know your birth date and then where you were born. So there's 5 different types of human design, and Hamada, I'm going to have you go through those.
So within the human design system, there are 5 human design types. The first one is manifestors, which is people who manifest, I think, right? Generators, I guess people who generate. Third one is manifesting generators. The fourth one is projectors. And the fifth one is reflectors.
Yeah, so each of these different types has a different role that they play, and there's a way that they can work with energy. So it's all about how do you have a natural flow of energy depending on which type you are. And we did ask another question too about as far as how many of you knew what your human design type was, and less than 50% of you knew. So I would say if you do get a chance, Google it, you can figure out what your type is. It may help you, it may resonate with you, or it may not. I personally found it to be pretty interesting when I started putting mine in, and then I started putting everyone I knew in. So I put Hamada's in, I put my son's in, I put my mom's in, my sister, like I put everybody like in my family, and I was like, it totally made sense, and I was like, oh, this makes so much sense once I did it. So I actually found it to be more interesting when I started using, looking at the other people in my life's human design as well. So and I guess what I'll say too is Hamada and I both are generators, and we'll talk a little bit about more generators when we get into their type, but it totally made sense. I was like, oh, this just really resonated. So the first type are manifestors, and my dad was actually a manifestor, so I'm very, very much have a lot of love for manifestors out there. They only make up 9% of the population, so there aren't a lot of manifestors out there. And they're really here to initiate. So these are trailblazers. They are people who are going to make change. They have an ability to inspire action in other people. And they're also the only type that can initiate projects or ideas without some sort of external cue. And this is just because they have this inspiration that directly comes from within. And so these are people that will have a strong aura. They're people who, they normally have very strong throat chakras in the chakra system. So the throat chakra governs communication. So these are people that will like to communicate before they take action, because they really want to inspire people and gather that support. They also are people that don't need permission. They can just start acting. So these people tend to just be very much the go-getters. They can really initiate and get things done.
Or the manifestors.
Yeah, so
I thought manifestors did think about and manifest. No, they have to do things.
Well, they do think they can find that inspiration from within. So they are very powerful when they're in tune with their intuition. So these are people that and it's funny because you see it everywhere. There's all this stuff about manifesting and how do you manifest. Most of those practices work really well if you're naturally a manifester. But if you're not a manifester, it may not be as easy for you. So you may be trying all these manifesting practices, and you're like, why am I not manifesting anything? And it's like, oh, I'm not a manifester. This isn't what I'm supposed to be doing. So I do think human design sometimes can make sense, because you may see people out there, they try all these manifesting practices, and they do great. And then you're like, well, why isn't this working for me? And it's like, maybe that's not what your role is. That's not how your energy flows. So and that's why I think the system is really interesting, and it's kind of nice in knowing yourself, but then knowing like relationships. So if you do have a manifestor around you, they can be really inspiring, and they can really be powerful people in your life. So definitely honor that, but also honor that you may not be a manifestor. So don't be something you're not. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so I do think that manifestors in general, there's a lot of like self-help guides and everything that fits into what a manifestor needs to do. So these are naturally people who tend to just have a lot going for them in terms of what's available in the culture, especially in American culture right now. The next type we're going to go through are generators. And this is
So generators make up 37% of the population and are here to build, to do the work, and to become masterful at the art of building and working. Their role is to build and work, gives them access to the energy required to fulfill that role as long as they are using their strategy, which is to wait to respond. That's
yeah,
cool.
so this is what me and Hamada are. And this actually, I think when I first found human design, it made me feel good because I was like, well, I've tried manifesting, I've tried all these other things and it's not working. Why? And it's like, oh, I'm a generator. This is why. And actually, generators are the majority of the population. Or not the majority, but they're the most common. Generators and manifesting generators are the majority of the population. So they're really the workers of the society, but they're also in a lot of ways, like what I like to view them as is they have this ability to just generate like a sustainable, like unstoppable form of energy, but what can really get them out of alignment is if they're not following their joy. So this is where generators really need to follow what is fulfilling to them. So, for example, Hamada, he went when he was in America, he went and got his degree in accounting, and that is not Hamada's joy at all. That is just not for him. And not that there's anything wrong with being an accountant, but if that's not your passion, for him, that was not the role he should be doing. And it's not something he could really be fulfilled in and master. And so for him, he found more fulfillment doing something he loved. And so this really does help you to try to understand what you can do even to help people in your life who may be in a different, they may not be fulfilling the right action based on what their energy type is. So generators are designed to continuously cultivate their relationship with the universe as they create. So these are creators who are meant to come to Earth and really create and build and master whatever their craft is. So if they're a writer, maybe they have to really master writing. If they're an artist, they have to master their art. If they're even working in an organization, maybe their craft is building teams. Whatever it is, these are builders, and they need to really love their craft, be inspired by their craft. And the other thing too is before they leap into action, they won't necessarily rely on internal cues. They should wait for cues from outside of themselves. So there'll be signals that come their way. And a lot of generators too, and there's different parts of human design, which we'll get to in other episodes, where there's different authorities. So like a lot of generators have a sacral authority. So that means what guides them is in their gut. So they'll get these strong gut reactions. So for example, and this is something I've actually started doing now that I know my human design, if you ask yourself a yes or no question as a generator, you'll say, should I do this or shouldn't I? You'll get, like, for example, me as a generator, I can get a gut reaction, yes or no, right away.
Really?
And that'll be the right decision. Okay.
Is this 2022 going to be good or bad?
No, it has to be yes or no. But I think it'll be good.
All right, good. Yeah, I think it's going to be a good year.
Yeah, it's better to do it as yes or no. But so if you say, like, so phrase it as, like, will 2020 be a good year?
Yes or no? Yes.
Okay, so that's how you do it. Yeah. So, and it's easy to, like, if you're making decisions as a couple. So if I tell Hamada, what do you want for dinner tonight? That open-ended question is going to drive us nuts in a relationship because both of us are generators with a sacral authority. So for us, it's like, you might as well ask us, like, how do you go to the moon or something? And, I'm sure we could figure it out, but it's going to take a lot of work to do to figure all that out.
You're right.
So, like, but for us, if you say, like, do you want to have tacos for dinner or do you want to have spaghetti or something like that?
It's easier.
If it's a two answers like that, it'll be easier. So, like, I can say, oh, I want tacos. I don't want spaghetti, or I don't want sushi, or whatever it is. So asking a closed-ended question is better for a generator. If you have any, and there's a lot of generators out there, so this is definitely a type that you'll probably encounter at some point or another.
Like, should I buy a car or no? Yes. Should I, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, or even, I mean, you can get into types, I guess, like if you say, like, should I buy a Volkswagen or should I buy a Hyundai or something like that, and then maybe, like, if it's two choices, it's easy for your gut to just have that guttural response.
It's true.
And the other thing, too, about generators, with passion being so important to them, this is where you hear advice, too, where people say, like, oh, follow your bliss. This actually works really well for generators. It doesn't work well for all the types, but it does work really well for generators. And when you are in alignment, you're actually going to feel a lot more. You're going to start noticing things in the universe that are coming your way, because their strategy is to respond. So they'll wait and respond for things. They're not supposed to be a manifestor out there trying to initiate everything. So the next type is a manifesting generator. And this is what our precious little baby Sammy is. So this is one that we obviously love and adore too.
So you can think of a manifesting generator like a hybrid of manifestors and generators. They make up 33% of the population. They are mostly known as being a generator type with manifestor qualities. Like pure generators, they are here to do the work, to build and to master the art of working and building. They have a non-linear approach to life. Look for shortcuts to their mastery. A desire to sample all of the things, and are here to remind us to be lit up by life. They have a dual strategy of informing before acting from their manifestor side, and waiting to respond from their generator side.
Yeah, so this one's this one's like a hybrid type, and it does have some of those manifesting qualities. So some of the manifesting practices may work for a manifesting generator, but they also, because they're naturally generating energy like a generator, they also will be able to just have things happen that they can respond to and take action from. So this is actually a really interesting type. Originally, it wasn't necessarily included. So when they originally did human design, they only had 4 types, and now they've come up with this hybrid one. And this one is definitely interesting, even when you think of parenting. So we think of parenting manifesting generators because we have a son who's a manifesting generator. But having that nonlinear approach to life, so having really like rigid discipline or a rigid path of doing things won't necessarily work for a manifesting generator. They're going to need a little bit more freedom to explore a little bit. And that'll be true if you're in a relationship with a manifesting generator. They may want a little bit of spontaneity. They may want things to be inspired by, because they're really all about how do we be inspired and lit up by life. So this one is probably one of my favorite types, but it does require you to be a little bit more thoughtful with how you interact with them, especially if you're parenting a manifesting generator. If you're parenting like a regular generator like Hamada and I, the best thing you can do is encourage that generator to figure out what they do find joy in and what they can master. So is there a craft they can go to that they can master? Is there a field of study? Anything like that is really going to help them. The manifestor itself, if you're parenting them, they're going to be ones who they'll probably figure it out on their own as far as what their direction is. So they may be one where and this sort of ties in with manifesting generator, they may not need as much guidance as maybe a generator does. So the next type we're going to go to are the projectors. And this is also a type that's near and dear to my heart. This is what my mom and my sister are. So growing up, my dad, he passed away. So for most of my life, I was with my mom and my sister while I was being raised. And so I was a generator surrounded by projectors. And they make up 20% of the population. They tend to be very intuitive, and they're very connected to what's possible. So a lot of times you see projectors in the spiritual community. They tend to be some of the visionaries out there. They're really here to help know and guide others to what's possible. And so if you're a generator and you're around projectors, the projectors may kind of show you what's possible, and then the generators can respond to that and take action and build upon it. They also hold within them the template for a new era in humanity.
Wow.
So they're actually very important. Like I said, they're more of the visionary type, and their role is really to help how do we move to a more spiritual era. So this is a type that tends to have a lot of deep wisdom for what's possible, for the
Be open.
relationships in their life. They're also very highly intuitive people. So these are people that may have insights into things. They normally will be able to see things that maybe the rest of us don't. So this is a really important type for you to have in your life, and then to get different ideas and wisdom from. For their kind of strategy of action is to wait to be invited. So this type tends to be people who are intuitive. They may end up getting their nose into people's business where they shouldn't be. So they also can be offering advice to people when they're not ready to. So if you're a generator building something, you may not be ready to hear that new information. Yeah. So they really should be honor that and wait to be invited to act or to share their guidance. So this is a type that and when there's a whole complex set of where the energies are and the different and the body and the chakras and everything. But projectors are ones that they tend to just really be a lot highly intuitive people. So finding ways to hone that intuition, to honor it. I think we live in a society sometimes that's very, very highly focused on science to the point where sometimes we forget intuition, and there needs to be that balance between the two.
I think intuition is very important because sometimes you can feel stuff, and if you ignore it, sometimes you're like, oh, I wish I have listened to my gut, You really have to listen to your intuition all the time, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and I think humans are not just rational. Like, there isn't just logic and empiricism. There's a whole spectrum of the human experience that if you only focus on one, it's not gonna be beneficial to you. Like, we're here as humans to experience everything. I will say too, like in the relationship, if you are a projector, make sure that you're waiting to be invited. If you are trying to share advice or wisdom with your partner, they may take it the wrong way if they haven't asked you for your input. They may not have to ask every time, but like if you can sense if somebody's just not ready to hear something. And then, like I said, if you are a projector, make sure you find a practice to really try to develop your intuition and honor that gift that you have naturally. So the next type is very, very interesting. They are reflectors. So these are like the shiny unicorns of the human design space. They make up just 1% of the population. Wow. So these reflectors have a very important role to play in society. They really are here to help us reflect on how the community is doing as a whole. And they have this unique ability to hold up a mirror to others so that they can see themselves reflected in the reflector's experience.
Mm.
So the reflector is constantly reflecting. They're sampling and amplifying the energies of those around them. So they're going to need time to try to figure out what everybody's energy is, especially separating it from their own. So I'll say probably reflectors, probably more than any other type, boundaries are going to be more important for them than anything, especially energetic boundaries. So like they'll be even more sensitive if there's a negative energy around them, or if there's something like that, they'll have to put up that barrier to protect themselves more.
Right.
So they're just in general tend to be a lot more sensitive to the energy around them.
I
So
think it's crazy. It's only 1% of them are reflectors. That's
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, well, and it's really important for them to be allowed time to really think about and feel into whatever situation they're in, and what decision they should make. So I know this is one where I've seen the strategy that, and they're actually very highly impacted by the moon, which is really interesting too. But out of all the types, they're the most highly impacted by the moon. So if they do need to make a decision, their strategy is that they should wait an entire cycle of the moon to make a big decision in their life. So maybe they're thinking about applying for a new job. They're thinking about it today. They should wait a month basically for the moon to cycle and really think about it before they can come up to a decision. So these are very like long and slow thinkers, but that's because they're thinking in such a deep, reflective way. Yeah. So this is one where they're definitely people who are important to have around. But if you're in a relationship with somebody who is a reflector, you need to honor that and give them time. So like don't rush them into decision. And then also make sure that you're realizing that their energy can be impacted by yours. So if you're having like a bad day, don't just like dump it on the reflector. You may want to try to honor the fact that they have this gift of being really sensitive of the energy around them, and not just take advantage of that.
I think people should always honor like a personality of someone, no matter how it is, because we're all different. We're all different, no matter what's your background or your belief or your human design. We should always honor that personality of the person.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think that what human design does is it gives you just another tool that's not necessarily based in a culture or a religion, but it gives you another tool in your relationship to try to understand who am I, who is the person I'm with, how is their energy impacted by things, are there different strategies I can use if I'm with a reflector versus a generator. I will say after doing this too, when I met, it's funny because Hamada and I are both generators, and he's the only generator in my life besides me. And I feel like we both had we're just on the same energy wavelength. Like as soon as I met him, I sensed it. And I've always felt like that for the entire time we've been married. And then when I went to human design and I found that, I was like, we're the same. This makes so much sense. This is why it's so interesting that intuitively I knew that, but it was just it gave me that confirmation that, hey, this is a generator like me,
That's crazy.
We can generate together.
I know. So let's say there's a generator and a reflection. How are they gonna work it out? Do you just have to talk and?
Yeah, I think you definitely need to honor the type that you are and the type that you're with.
Mm-hmm.
So take the assessment together, see what your type is, and then really understand. So for example, even me, now that I know my mom and my sister are projectors, if sometimes they'll start saying stuff or they'll want to give me advice about things and maybe I'm not ready for it, I'm not going to take it personally or anything. I'll be like, oh, they're just being a projector,
Yeah, you're right.
But I'll also honor okay, maybe they have some insight into something that I'm not seeing too.
So it's good to talk to each other and help each other.
Yeah, well, and it's good to take from each type what you can. I know even with Sammy, I've noticed now that he's getting older. But even when he was like, I feel like even when he was in like when I was pregnant with him, I felt his little spirit, and I could feel this like kind of little bit of a hustler energy from him. He's just like he's just like a go getter kind of guy, and I kind of felt a similar energy like that from my dad, who was a manifester. But it's really interesting having Sammy now as a manifesting generator, because I'm like, oh, he has like our generator ability to just sustain energy, but with this manifester, like, let's make things happen,
You're right.
kind of vibe. And so it's really beautiful to see that, because I'm like, oh, it's like he has like the best of like everything.
Everything, you're right.
And then he has his projector grandma and aunt who can help guide him and tell him, give him some good insight and wisdom. So I just think it's a really fun way to look at different energy types and to understand your own, understand your partners, and then understand your families and the different dynamics in relationships. I also think it gives you some good, when you get deeper into it, and we'll probably do future episodes on this as well, because I'm really into it. When you get into like knowing your strategy, when you get into knowing the different gates that you have and channels in your own chart, it gives you some really good insight into what types of activities you should do if you're feeling like things aren't aligned. How do you get aligned? How do you get back into it? So I just think it's a really great system, and it's a really interesting new way to kind of look at people and the relationships you have.
I agree.
So, well, and I think especially being a cross cultural situation, sometimes the cultural dynamics get so intense. This is kind of a good way to talk about things that's not about religion, it's not about culture, it's
The
just,
human design.
yeah, it's its own thing separate from all of it. I will also say there's definitely different things I noticed being an American, where manifesting is kind of more the encouraged style of things. That you may notice different cultural things that come up in it, but it doesn't have to be cultural for your purposes with your relationship.
Yes.
So, with that, we just wanted to give you some information about the human design types, the 5 that are out there. Like I said, you can Google to find your own type. And then, if you like this episode, let us know. If you have more questions about human designs, let us know. We will do future episodes if this is something that's resonating with you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Sure.
thank you guys so much, and take care.
Yeah, thank you so much and have a good day, and talk to you next week. Thank you. Bye bye.